And we are live on air, and it is actually the last Thursday of the first month of 2015, interestingly enough. How are you, Barrett? Are you holding up under the stresses of this new era?
Well, I've got my moments, that's for sure, Chris. But right now, I've got a smile on my face and a good feeling in my heart. So I think it's just a testament that there's always going to be ups and downs as long as we believe that this life is our life. And once we start to embrace that deeper truth, then those highs and lows start to get a little gentler. So that's what I'm aiming for.
Exactly. And, I'm probably as guilty of this as most of the other astrologers and prophets and soothsayers out there in a multitude of different circles. But, you know, 2015, last year, we were touting how 2015 is going to be a very dramatic step into a new era. And there definitely is a definite alteration in the human, in the collective consciousness. But I don't think it's exactly what everyone was anticipating or predicting, especially those of us who look at astrological configurations and the advancement of the planets. So once again, it goes back to the idea that as much as we may want to put a beautiful frame around the painting, at the center of the painting, there's something that we often don't want to look at, which is the human experience in its darkest and deepest nature.
Yeah, there's that beautiful section of the Course where Jesus tells us, don't look at the frame, to look at what the frame is holding, and that this frame that we think is so ornate, when we look a little closer, that the diamonds are really teardrops, and the rubies are really drops of blood. It's like there's a lot of things that sparkle here in this world. Um, but if we look a little closer, there's always an ending here. Nothing lives that doesn't die. Um, there's nothing good that doesn't turn bad at some point. It's just the nature of this dualistic world that we're in. And, you know, we have to, at some point, consider the idea that maybe what we are is worthy of better than that. And that we really want what's stable, what is unending, and what is ultimately truly joyful. And that's our nature as spirit. That's our nature as one with love. And it's the experience that all of us true spiritual seekers are aiming for. We're aiming for that way of knowing that we've never really been apart from that totality. We've only just had an idea that we are, and we've grabbed onto that idea so hard that we have a seemingly different experience. It leads us to this experience that we're not always happy, or we're not always feeling fulfilled. Um, and ultimately, we can step into an experience that is more joyful. Um, but we just need to begin to look at these ideas that we've latched onto, and see which of them don't work for us anymore. So it's not an easy process, but I think it's a good process, and it's worth doing.
Exactly. And so with that thought in mind, and the addressing the reality of the non-reality that we keep going back to and trying to engage in. A lot of ways we, keep creating these identities um, that are so varied. There are so many different fluctuations. I can do this, I can't do that. I'm a good this, I'm a bad that. I see a lot of people who really get invested in this ephemeral identity that we've created, and a lot of it leads us to addictions and frustrations, and ultimately to self-undoing and self-obliteration in many ways. And David Hoffmeister, who is another highly recognized teacher of A Course in Miracles, had a very interesting statement he had made in one of his books here, and so I thought to share it. He says, turning something over to the Holy Spirit is a leap of faith that lets go of attempting to control outcomes. The core of alcoholism, anorexia, bulimia, smoking, and a host of things the world calls addictions is control. The little willingness the Holy Spirit asks is the key to letting go of the attempt to manage the body and the world, which is the insane attempt to maintain a self-concept image that God did not create. In other words, who you are as a creation of the divine is perfection. And yet, you've hobbled together, we've all hobbled together, this dysfunctional and dumbed down expression of life that is in many ways an attack on God. And that thought comes up in the Course over and over again, that the everything that we do within the realm of our ego is an attack on God, because we're attacking the realization of our perfection as an expression of God. He goes on to say, an idea to contemplate from the Course is this: seek not to change the world, but choose to change your mind about the world. The requirement is to change your thinking, not to focus on behavior and form. Behavior flows from thought, and transformation of the mind is synonymous with changing thought patterns from ego-based to spirit-based. So, and I think that's something that's very timely right now, especially as we're moving into the early part of the year. A lot of people are trying to control things. Oh, I'm going to lose weight this year. I'm going to get rich this year. I'm going to control the outcome of my life. And, this is that period of amping up. And, of course, then as we move into November and December, we feel all of the frustration of not having achieved our desired goals and having controlled our life successfully.
Yeah, it's a little like this idea of needing to be the king of the hill. I played that game when I was a kid. We had these big snow piles, and we'd run up to the top of them, and then, try to push the other kid off the top so you could be on top. And that's one of these perfect examples that really only one person can be on top. And it's the kind of kill or be killed kind of attitude, or at least push or be pushed attitude from when I was younger. And you might get up there. It feels pretty good to be at the top, but at some point you're not going to be on top anymore, and then it doesn't feel so good. And these are the ups and downs of our life, and they come in so many different flavors, whether it's something regarding a job, whether it's something regarding a relationship, maybe a romantic relationship, or any number of other different things. There are times where it feels like we're on top of the world, and even to use that expression, that's from the Titanic in the movie when they're at the bow of the ship. He's on top of the world. Well, we all know how that movie ended. It didn't go so good for them. So we have all these kinds of things we celebrate, but I think that there's a different kind of celebration, and it's the celebration of relinquishing our fear in exchange for harmony. It's the celebration that Spirit kind of gives to us to encourage us in this work, to know that every time that we choose to look through love's eyes instead of hate's eyes, that we're making a contribution. And that contribution is to the hastening of our own experience of this truth. The good news is that you can't avoid it forever. We're all going back to that oneness. We can't miss being a part of what we really are. But we can kind of drag our heels. We can push back against the part of us that's trying to wake up. And I definitely know that part. I've done my share of it. But eventually we do make the choice for love, and we do decide that that's what we want more than anything else.
It's very interesting that you mentioned that instinct, I guess you could call it, to go back to source, to go back to love, because after 68 years of stumbling around on the planet, I can look back and review my life, and there are all these different things that are high points and low points and very strong, profound memories. But for me, the clearest memory I have was at a point where I was about 5 years old. I remember being out in the backyard, and I used to be quite a mound builder, and I was always playing in the dirt. I loved being, in that thing of digging holes and creating little um, cliff dwellings and all sorts of things like that. And mid-afternoon, and I had, pardon me, this very strong wave of melancholy come over me. And I really felt like there was a place that I had come from that I had forgotten about, and somehow something caused that memory to come back to me in that brief moment. And for a 5-year-old kid to, have that longing that comes to the surface and really is a very profound emotion. Uh, it had a tremendous impact on me, and it's always been kind of there in the background ever since that one precise moment on that one summer day in southeastern Colorado.
Yeah, those kinds of experiences for me really underline this idea that this lifetime is not our whole thing. As you know, I do help people with past life issues, and when we have experiences like that where they just don't make sense if this was our only experience, they really point us to that part of us that's opening into a broader perspective. And I think that's another way you can look at the spiritual path, is a continually opening into a broader perspective. It starts out like it's all about me, and then in my case I start to tune into past lives, so it's not just about this lifetime, but it's about all of the lifetimes. And then you start to realize, well, it's not even just that, because this thread that I call my soul is just one of many threads. And if I'm identified with one thread, then I'm excluding the others. And so the broadening keeps happening until there's literally no one who's left out. And one of the issues I think a lot of people have is that we're resistant to that process. There are other lifetimes that weren't so pretty that we've all had. There are other souls that we've had bad experiences with, and the idea of being one with them is kind of like, oof, I don't think I want to do that. So we keep opening our arms wider and wider. There's the beautiful healer Amma who gives hugs to people around the world, and people will talk about how different they feel after that experience. And I think just like her opening her arms to everyone and not, um, denying that embrace, we can also do that. We can begin to open our arms and our heart to everyone. And I think it is kind of the sticking point for a lot of us around this healing. But it's also a crucial area that we can keep opening up and finding more love around.
Exactly, and the the journey that we're all on is one of uh, the process of disentangling ourselves from our own fantasies, which is kind of an interesting way of looking at our identity, this personality that we've created and that we're running around with and having fun with, because who we are and who we appear to be um, has been very, very cleverly and painstakingly uh, assembled over centuries and perhaps even millennia. Who knows how long it takes us to build a workable model of self as separate and as dysfunctional and as imperfect as we have managed to create. So, getting back to that idea of releasing control, that's really what keeps this thing in place, is that we're always controlling it. We're always in a state of panic and pandemonium. We're always having to do damage repair and fix broken things. And uh, that kind of leads into a thought that you and I were just kind of examining briefly before we started recording this, which is that how do we get to a place where we can release the control element in our consciousness, in our mind? Uh, and you had a verse that you were going to share with us about perhaps one of the best ways to step out of that control.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for that reminder. This quote is in chapter 27 of the Course, section 4, called The Quiet Answer. And it begins, "In quietness are all things answered, and is every problem quietly resolved." And I think that first sentence, it just kind of feels like a soothing balm to me. Um, I think the ego is likened elsewhere in the Course to like a raucous shriek that, it's always yelling. It's like there's this quiet, gentle nature of love. It's always holding its hand out. And then the part of us that's afraid of that is like yelling in its face. Like, no, I don't want that. No. And it's just like it doesn't stop yelling. And I've often likened my own resistance to learning these ideas to being like a little kid and like sticking my fingers in my ear, saying la 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 la, I can't hear you. And I'm like, well, if I act like a 2-year-old with a temper tantrum, I'm gonna probably get the benefit from that level of spiritual awareness. So,
Well, and it definitely effectively blocks you from hearing what it is when you're searching for the answer. And I think that's probably the scariest part, is that the answer is always there,
mm,
but our constant creating cacophony of different sounds, both embracing and loving, as well as attacking and dismembering kind of vocalizations, is the one thing that ultimately obliterates our resolving our most pressing problems, because we can't step out of that constant brain chatter. So what do you do when you're trying to attain a state of quietness?
well, I mean, one thing I'll do is meditate. And one of the things I often am amazed at when I do that is how noisy my mind is. I mean, like how many years have I meditated, and I still sit down and I'm very distracted most of the time. Um, but I kind of think of it as like a clearing mechanism. It's like, okay, I can just let this kind of come by and let the chatter of the rapids of my mind kind of just go by. And a lot of times when I'm able to do that, I can then go back into the quietness. And I think it really comes through in the healing practice I have too, is that I often describe the work that I do as a deep inner listening. And I've also heard that same kind of idea expressed in Ken Wapnick's talks about the Course, where he says that we all have this sort of inner melos or melody, um, but it's kind of like the music within the notes that are printed on the page. And part of our work as maturing as students of this course is to begin to listen more and more, to hear the fine kind of melody that plays behind the words on the page, and the messages that are underneath the problems in our life or the problems in other people's lives. There's always a way for us to hear that and to start to kind of come from that deeper place. And even if our words are responding to what's on the screen, um, there's something deeper that's going on. And it's just a real recognition that no matter what is showing up on the screen of our lives, that there is this deeper connection. And it's a connection that we can't actually lose, even if we turn away from it. It's never not there. And I think that reassurance, that understanding, just brings me back into that quietness. So, do you have a practice or a way to access that?
Absolutely. One of my favorite things, well, I wouldn't say it's necessarily a favorite thing, but doing dishes.
Hmm.
Well, you can be standing at the sink after having prepared, dinner for the family, and in that journey of doing mundane tasks, and I'm sure this works well with mopping floors and washing walls and everything else, you will arrive at a point every once in a while where you've completely forgotten about this identity that you're always trying to sustain. And so you slide just a half a degree off center and you slip into that zone. And you're just caught up in, the most mundane activity. And you're no longer thinking about yourself. And that's when frequently that voice will penetrate through our normal realm of noise making and actually reveal itself. And so, a lot of times, some of the most spiritual experiences you could have will be a side effect of doing some of the things that perhaps you have lowest on your list of favorite things to be doing.
I like that. I like that a lot. I think there's an old, I don't know if it's Buddhist saying, an old Zen saying perhaps, that says, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. And it's just exactly what you're saying. It's like there's this sense of presence that we can bring to whatever task we're doing. And I don't know, there's another story like that where there was a prince who wanted to know, how to be enlightened or more spiritual, and somehow he ended up going down to one of the butchers in his kingdom, and uh, this butcher was a real master of his craft, and with one swing of the cleaver, he was able to slice the carcass of the cow, without hitting any bone or getting stopped by things that normally get in the way. And he described it as well as just like a very subtle but keen awareness of that kind of life that's flowing through everything, even in that moment, and something as seemingly mundane or non-spiritual as um, you know carving up a cow for dinner. So um, it's a great reminder that there really is no task that is unsuited for helping us to wake up. That if we're willing to let it be used for that, that it can be and it will be. So I think our intention around our lives is as important, if not more important, than any of the details of what's happening in our life.
Well, right, and I think it's also very important that people um, gain that recognition that trying to be spiritual is not always going to lead you to the results that you would like to be led to. Because again, you go back to that one uh, crucial element, you're trying to control it. And a
Mm.
lot of times you're so invested in watching me and what a spiritual person I am that it becomes a production. And that seems to be a blockage to actually attaining the flow and being in tune with the moment. So we have the event coming up in about a little bit less than 3 weeks now. And
Yeah.
what are your thoughts about the big adventure coming on a
Yeah.
Sunday in the last part of February?
I think it's going to be great. As you mentioned, it's an extension of these online talks. It's going to be called The Mentor Within, just like this series. And it's being held in Chicago at a place called Inner Metamorphosis University. Address is 1418 West Howard Street on February 22nd. We are going to be talking about the course, and it'll be even more of a conversation because there will be more of us to talk. So even though we'll be kind of heading up the charge, it'll be really interesting to see the contributions of everyone who joins us. So that's one part of it that I'm really looking forward to.
Yes, absolutely. I'm very excited about the idea of being able to hear what other people's current experiences are with A Course in Miracles. And then you will have copies of your two books available for people, and I will recommend that you seriously consider Barrett's books because I think they're beautiful and very handy. They're the sort of small pocketbook you can carry with, and when you're sitting on the L train or in an airplane flying to Toledo for whatever purpose would draw you to Toledo, you can just break open the book, and very often you'll get a thread of a thought that is very relevant to something in your life at the moment. So we're looking forward to being available to participating in an event that will hopefully bring people together seeking a higher vision. And we'll have some of our things to share with you, and then we'll also be doing some readings for people after the discussion part of the adventure.
Yeah. So come one, come all. It's going to be a really good time, and there'll be some laughter included too. So, just like on these talks, we try not to get too serious. It's kind of an obstacle to spiritual awakening. So we'll also have that same cheerful attitude, and just let Spirit lead the way, um, and hopefully Spirit will lead you to partake in this one. And if not, then I'm sure we'll be having more of these too. We're looking forward to creating all kinds of great things for people who are ready to just go a little bit deeper on their path.
Exactly, to take it to the next level. So, well, Barrett, I'm going to totter off here and finish building a lasagna for the family for supper, and I'm sure you have a multitude of tasks to do also. It was a great chat, and I'm looking forward to a week from today when we once again are going to make the connection and share the thoughts.
I look forward to it too, Chris. You have a great rest of your day and have fun eating that lasagna tonight.
Oh, I'm sure we will. Take care.
All right. Bye, Chris.
Goodbye.